Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb, and I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm your host. And weekly, I present to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome to episode 150. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. Welcome, energy enthusiasts, to another enlightening episode of Energy Speaks Back. Today's guest is a newly found energy expert who has transitioned into the energy sector with the support of all BMS and B2B Energy. And today we're going to hear her personal story of how she took those steps into the journey of energy management. So without any further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Lucy Neal. Good afternoon, Lucy. How are you today?
I'm very well, Paul. How about yourself?
Very good. And isn't it lovely? Face to face. And we're in quite a nice area in the city.
It's a lovely location, yeah.
And all these lovely buildings for energy management. Wouldn't you just love to get your hands on them?
Lots of opportunities, yeah.
Many. I can see loads of lights on as well. So we have been doing the training through B2B Energy,
Yeah.
and you've gone through the principles, you've gone through the 11-week energy program, and now you're in the lifelong learning with the group.
Yeah.
So I know a lot about you
Yeah.
and all your background and all the sort of how you got into the industry. But for the benefit of the audience today, can you tell us your background story and your origin story?
So obviously I come from no experience and no background in energy whatsoever. I was actually working as a beauty therapist, and I see an opportunity for a position with all BMS, and I inquired for the position. Obviously had an interview and so forth, and then got the role. But obviously for me, having young children and so forth, I see it as an opportunity of trying to make a difference for my children's future generation as well. So it kind of all rounded fitted well with me, and obviously here we are a year and a half, almost 2 years later, in my role as energy manager.
In the beginning, was it all about the sustainability side? Was you looking at recycling all your waste and at home side of it?
Yeah, I've
was
definitely
it that
made
extent?
Yeah, well, to some extent, yeah, I've definitely made changes and adaptations at home, and managing the kids a little bit more and things like that, and even to things like having the meter at home, rather than just seeing how much it was costing me, I was looking at actually
Right.
my consumption of
Yeah,
how
yeah.
much we was using at home. So there's definitely been an impact in my everyday life as well. And taking the kids to school, if we can walk, can we walk instead of using the
Right.
car and things like that, turning lights off, and looking at making changes at home as well as in the workplace.
And did you realise when you joined the role and when you started getting involved with it, how deep it actually went with organisations?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, 100%. Even just in small factors of obviously with yourself, and we've done walkabouts and such things like that, and realising that we can make changes to things like with from lights to taps to plant rooms. There's so many opportunities, and obviously it's such a vast majority of opportunities.
What was going on in your mind when you first took that step into this role?
Oh wow!
I know, I can remember them early days. You go, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, didn't have a clue.
I really need help.
Really didn't have a clue. And obviously I still get the days where I'm like, oh God, what am I doing, sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I have a great support network, and people say to me, believe in
There's a
yourself.
very good team around you, isn't
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Believe in yourself, you're doing amazing, you've come so far, and yeah, and that obviously that support network is amazing for me. Yeah.
And then sort of taking those steps, obviously your family are still there, you're balancing everything now, but obviously the way of life of working, we've got part-time home and on-site type thing, so you're having to balance all that as well now, aren't you?
Yeah, working, running a household, and being a single mum, working with children and so forth. Yeah, but I mean, I was managing that beforehand, and I'm still managing it now. I don't find that there's been it's not held me back from my role anyway. It hasn't stopped me from being a mum either. So
Yeah.
there is a healthy balance for me, work life and home life.
And you're out on your own basically now. I know you partner with the other BMS guys because you they've got the BMS experience. You haven't got no BMS experiences yet, have you?
No.
You're still picking that up.
Yeah, learning as I go along. Like with the whole role, to be fair, obviously there's such a majority to vast majority to it. It's not just go out and be an energy manager. I need to have an understanding of a BMS, of a plant room, how a building runs and things like that, time schedules, time zones. Are they demand driven? There's so much to it. And obviously I really didn't realise how much there was to it until I started the role.
I've noticed a massive difference in your vocabulary, even just then.
Yeah.
You would have never have picked up on all those points, would you?
No.
You come in totally different. And what was your role before you was doing this?
I was a beauty therapist.
Right. And what sort of things did that do? What's the technicality of that? It's makeup?
So aesthetics, so injectables.
Oh,
Spray
right.
tans, putting injections in people's faces.
Right.
Yeah, completely
So from
different.
the human body to the building.
Yeah.
That is a massive step change.
Yes.
What's been your biggest challenges with all this?
Biggest challenges. Oh, that's a tricky question.
Let me help you with this, because what's in my mind is obviously female going into a man's world, especially BMS. There's not many female BMS engineers, are there? What do they do when you first walk into that room, for instance? Do they step back? Do they?
A female working in a male-dominated industry. Now, most people would see that as a challenge. It's not for me at all.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah,
like everyone has been so. What is the word I'm looking for?
Amicable.
Yeah, acceptance of it. Like don't see me as she's a woman, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not been like that at all for me. That experience. It's not been a challenge. I've enjoyed it. I mean, everyone I work with, from my company to when I'm doing site visits, everyone's polite, friendly, respectful. Yeah, I've not received any barriers or anything regarding me being a woman.
Yeah. And what's been the challenges technically? Have you been struggling technically regarding that side of it?
As in what?
Obviously, the vocabulary has been the biggest stepping point, because when people talking bits and bytes and such.
I mean, the very first visit that I ever done, and I walked onto site and I said, I'm here to do an energy audit, I'm an energy manager, and they said, what is it you're doing? I was a bit like, I don't know, and I stumbled there. And it wasn't the most, should we say, the most best experience I'd had.
Yeah.
But I'm pleased I had that experience, because it pushed me to progress and say, actually, I'm going to come back to that site when I know a little bit more about what I'm talking about. It made me feel a little bit foolish, in all honesty, but it was something that pushed me to drive a little bit harder. That's how I am. So if I have a conflict or a barrier to say, oh, well, who are you or what are you doing, that makes me a little bit more ambitious.
Yeah. And your job has evolved, hasn't it? Originally you was purely doing the energy management, but now you've evolved it. Explain to us what you're doing now within your role.
So currently I'm working alongside another colleague. So we're going to visit sites. On site he's going to be doing risk assessments, I'm doing the energy assessments, and we're putting both these reports together, and then obviously we present them to the client with any findings that we find. Obviously I did start out as an energy manager, I still am an energy manager, but it's evolved in the sense I've had to really dive in. I've had to go at the boys on the PPM days, looking at the BMS, having office days. There's a lot to it, but yeah.
And what sort of things are you typically finding on those reports?
Time schedules. The amount of sites that have got their plant rooms running 24/7 is absolutely ridiculous, and the savings that we've been able to make, tremendous. The consumption, obviously the money they're wasting and so forth. Yeah, there's been some great finds. I love that though. And they're easy changes, aren't they? You could do you change them there and then, or do you sort of advise afterwards? Advise afterwards, because obviously we can't just go in and make them amendments.
Yeah.
It's got to go to whoever's up at the top of the chain.
Why are those changes not being made?
I guess because people haven't got the time or the resources to be checking things like that. Obviously when the engineers are on site doing their PPMs, they're looking at other certain things.
That isn't their focus, is it?
No, it isn't. And obviously, me being an energy manager, that is what I'm there for. I'm there to find any small to big changes we can make to drive down their consumption. That's what I'm there to deliver.
Do you find many of the or much of the plant in hand off auto?
Yes, yeah, obviously we find that, and then when it gets questioned, it's kind of like, I don't know why it's in hand, and then we can investigate that further again and find out why that's in hand.
And no one knows how long it's been in hand?
No.
Probably from day one?
Yeah, I mean, there's some sites, they may have a note on their system to say that it's in hand for whatever reason, but then we can investigate that further, find it out, and hopefully repair it, and then put that back into... Yeah.
And do you ever find any buildings where you just can't touch them because they're so perfect? Is it ever the case?
Not really, no.
No?
No. Honestly,
not even
no.
a percentage of them, you can say, 1% of them.
No, not so far, no. There's every visit
And
that I've done.
How many buildings are we talking about that you've actually done a survey on?
Probably close to about 100 now.
You've done 100 sites and not one of them had their sites, like the BMS set correctly?
The BMS, yeah, but then there's also
on
other
the time
things.
zones?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely been sites where the time zones and the BMS are running correctly, but there's also other things that you can find.
Things. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what sort of BMS manufacturers have you been looking at currently?
Trend, Siemens, Synapsis.
Right. Is there any that you particularly prefer that you lean to?
Trend.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's easy.
Right.
And obviously, when you're putting adaptations to the panel or anything, everything can work with Trend.
Yeah. It's a good hub of BMS system, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's reliable. Parts come out easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there sort of looking at a BMS? Would you say that there's certain things that you would need to do to the BMS, in your opinion, regarding what can an organisation do to the BMS, for instance? What should they be doing? We go in as an expert, we can dive in deep, but what should the organisation be doing regarding that?
Do you mean like as in alarms and things like that?
Yeah,
if there's
alarms.
sensors and alarms going off, obviously investigate them further if they've got the knowledge to investigate that, or obviously be calling the company to come out and investigate.
So where I'm going with it, do we find organisations are engaging with the BMS, or do they leave it?
Some do, yeah. I mean, some do if they've got the knowledge to, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't all. I've got a lot of organisations that I've worked with recently, and the BMS is the BMS. It just sits there, and no one ever looks at it.
Really?
You get the security guards might look to do the fine tuning on the time zones, but as organisations, not really being utilised enough as it should be. That's where I'm going with this.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, they will go in there and they'll know what they're looking at, but they don't make no amendments to it. That's generally down to our company to come in and make amendments if it's going to be done. They don't make no changes. They'll notice if there is an alarm going off, and maybe they may flag that alarm.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people do understand how BMS work. Maybe they're not using it to their full capacity, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. How long have you now been in the role?
Almost 2 years.
Right. And you make this massive transition. You feel as though you're comfortable in what you're doing now, or you've got more step changes to make?
I'm comfortable, but every day's a learning day, isn't it?
Right.
So there's still more to learn, definitely.
And what are your goals going forward? Have you got any goals that you've highlighted for the future?
A goal of mine would be to maintain the stability of this job.
Right. So around the BMS system, you've got peripheral plant like boilers, VSD control, pump controls.
Yeah.
Have you done training on those areas as well?
On VSD for ABB. Boilers, I've not had no training, but I understand a boiler.
The boiler control that we have from BMS is basically, we just send it an enable signal. We don't do much control.
Demand driven or enabled, Yeah,
so there's not a lot of control that
the control we can have is a set point. So if the temperature's outside at so-and-so, we can demand driven, make the demand of the boiler to turn on to reach a set point of blah, blah, blah. See, I do know.
Okay, so most of your training also has been around the BMS energy management. Have you looked into net zero? Have you started to focus on that element yet? Have you come across any of the net zero?
I've come across a small amount of net zero, but definitely progressing. That is obviously future training. We're almost at that point now, and I have an understanding of net zero.
Yeah, and also we've done some training as part of the first sort of stages. We've done the ENCO training, didn't we?
The energy conscious.
How did you
training.
find that?
Yeah, it was good. Really, yeah. I mean, I got to meet new people. It was networking and having an understanding of ENCO. Yeah, it was good, and obviously that involves people, workplace changes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good.
And are you noticing organisations are actually leaning towards that nowadays? You're not seeing it?
Not really, no. I mean, like, most people are still just relying on their BMS.
Right.
Or whoever's maintaining
So
the site.
your focus is purely around the BMS. Do you ever go into buildings that haven't got a building management system in?
No.
Right. That's
No.
interesting.
Because obviously my company is all BMS. It's a
Yeah.
BMS run company.
But do you not look to sort of going into a building where you could put a BMS, but they haven't got one at the moment? Would you not focus on that
I
side of
haven't
it?
as yet, no.
Right.
Haven't as yet.
But that
maybe,
would be an area.
Future,
Yeah.
that is maybe something we can look at and focus on moving forward. But pretty much, every site I've visited do have a BMS installed.
Yeah.
But whether that be a dated one or an up-to-date one, but then obviously if it's a dated one, then we can, look at upgrading that and making them changes.
Yeah. What are your challenges in this role currently?
So I don't really day-to-day see any challenges. Obviously for me, the only challenge that I've had the whole time is probably my confidence. But as time's going on, that's obviously progressing and building. And it will get better. I mean, like, I have an understanding now. That's the starting point, isn't it, of energy management and like BMS. Yeah, just my confidence growing, I guess.
And then, obviously, myself, I've put you in the deep end quite a few times, and I have taken you to site. Do you remember I took you to EMEX?
Yes.
And pushed you onto the stage, told you to engage with people.
Put me on a stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and had to engage. Yeah, but I like that. I do like being pushed out my comfort zone, because if we sit where we are, we're never going to progress.
Yeah.
So it's a good
And I think that's what's really accelerated your learning regarding what you've been doing, because you've had to go out there and do that.
Yeah, had to get out there and just be on the forefront of it all. And I'm still learning as I'm going along.
When you go into a building and you're meeting with the client for the first time, you're going through all your steps regarding the setup meeting, you're getting to know him regarding your like and trust and building that with the relationship side of it so you can make the changes. What do you then find? What's the areas that you're actually finding you're delving into with an organisation? What are their first areas that are challenges for them?
The consumption, how much they're using, and what areas we can look at driving it down for them.
Right. And do they focus on consumption, or are they focusing on cost all the time? Both.
I think really, ideally, it's probably cost for them.
Yeah.
But then obviously cost comes with consumption. So it's looking at how we can drive the consumption down, bring the cost down for them.
Yeah. And do we see transition, them turning the consumption into carbon? Do you have a report on carbon?
Oh yeah, that's part of my report, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's part
So
of my
you're
report.
adopting that. Because not all organisations, and even the legislation, we've got ESOS, for instance, that doesn't touch on carbon, it only focuses on consumption. We do convert it into cost as well.
Yeah, and I convert it into plain miles even.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Is that just a thing to explain to
Yeah,
them?
just explain to them and show them how
Yeah, I like
much,
that.
if we say, for instance, if we was to reduce their hours, how much it's going to save them in money, how much it saves in consumption, carbon, and in air miles as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you could say, they could convert the air miles as it's like getting a plane from here to Thailand or whatever.
Exactly that, yeah.
Right.
And it's crazy when you see them figures.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a site recently we done it just by turning it off for 4 hours, reducing it for 4 hours. The savings was crazy. I mean, it was £45,000 just by turning it off for 4 hours, and that was just looking at the electricity side of it. And then showing them in their carbon consumption and air miles, they was all like, wow, like,
What was the air miles? Can you remember?
Oh, not off the top of my head, no, but it sparked an interest. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because what it's doing, it's actually making it real and tangible.
Yeah.
When we talk about consumption, and then you talked about the money, it's important to them, but when they're talking about the environment and the equivalent of actually going from one place to the other via a plane, that's significant because everyone knows that sort of like aircraft travel is quite high intensity regarding carbon.
Yeah.
That's very good. I've got like a spreadsheet that I've converted and I change it to whatever weight of tonnage. So I was doing some work for a gym and I changed them all. They had a tennis court and I changed it all to tennis balls.
Oh, really?
There's 17,000 tennis balls to a ton of, when you work out the equivalent.
Yeah.
And I've done some football clubs where I've tried to convert it into footballs. So you go and find a typical weight of a football, and then you convert that back.
Yeah.
And then lastly, it's quite an interesting one. There was a company, can't tell you the name of the bird they had, but which is their name. We took the egg, so the bird's egg weight, or typical weight, and that was quite good because all the staff really got into that. They really got to sort of understand that.
It catches people's attention. It makes them want to engage.
Exactly.
It draws their attention to it. Yeah. And it's making it personal based, personal centred as well.
And I like to think it makes it more fun as well.
Yeah.
Do you feel, you've come into the industry at a good time because it has started to evolve. It's attracting many people from different industries in there to come on board. Before, we used to be, as an energy manager, boring old energy manager, with like a check jacket on with the leather elbows. But now it's all gone. We've got people like yourself coming into the industry. It's really livened it up.
I mean, to be fair, even for myself, in the time that I've been here, I am noticing there's people are changing their mindset regarding it. I mean, with the legislations changing and so forth, people will have to start making changes as well. So it's not even about, it's mandatory now. It's becoming mandatory, and people's attitudes are changing towards it. And obviously the cost of electricity and gas and so forth.
Significant cost.
Yeah, of course. And that's going to have an impact on any business.
Yeah.
Like, I learned in the training, the cost of energy consumption is the third largest expense for any company. So
I didn't pay her to say that, by the way.
So I mean, people are starting to take it more seriously now. Definitely, I've definitely noticed a change in the time that I've been doing this role.
Yeah. So I'm going to see if you remember a story where, and I don't want you to mention the name of the company, but it's one of your early visits. We had some training. I think I taught you about lagging and valve wraps, etc. And you went in with an experienced energy guy, and he said to you, can you relay the conversation that you had with him?
Oh, this is going back some time ago, but obviously, I remember being on site and walking around. Obviously, one of my roles is not just looking at the BMS. I will walk around the plant room and look at things, and he didn't understand anything that was in the plant room. There wasn't anything that he had an understanding of, and I said to him, so what is it you do then? Like, how are you engaging? How are you looking at what you're using? And basically, his response was just on the computer. But yeah, I don't know where we're going with this.
It was the lagging, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why would you want to lag that?
Oh yeah, he didn't have an understanding of why it needs to be lagged and the heat loss and things like that. Yeah, there wasn't anything in the plant room he understood though.
Wow.
There generally wasn't. The pumps, inverters, VSDs, the boilers, anything.
How did that make you feel?
I'd been doing my role for not even a year at that point, so it showed me that actually I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's quite a good feeling. Now this guy was an engine manager. He's getting paid by the client to be on site, managing their energy, and in all honesty, didn't have a clue what he was looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because I'm now looking at yourself. We've talked about BMS a lot and your role as such, but you are capable of looking at it outside that box of the BMS system, aren't you? You can, we talked about people. You can do people management. We talked about the boilers, the pumps, and that side of it. You've had training around that technology, so it's good that, and I think it's important for someone in the energy field to have a broad brush approach, not be an expert in anything. Like, I think I am an expert in BMS and CHPs, but I know a big wide range of lighting and other technologies, which I think is key. You don't need to be experts in all those.
No, of course.
But
as long as you have a basic understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we can always bring the experts in, can't we?
To
talk about that.
Yeah.
So from day one to now, you're comfortable. How do you feel about when you're walking around these plant rooms?
Comfortable and confident.
Right.
Confident. I know what I'm looking at. I mean, the first time I went out and I went round the plant room to take some photos, I didn't have a clue what I was photographing, what I was looking at. I was just snap happy. But now I'm confidently know what it is. My expectations of being in there and what I'm photographing.
You're more nervous regarding when it's face to face with someone in a meeting. That's where you've got to build your confidence, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like everything.
And talking and speaking and being a confident speaker, Yeah.
I know many people. I met a guy on Tuesday. He sells hundreds of cars. He's one of the top sales guys. And we all had to stand up and say something in a group. He couldn't do it.
No.
He said, I'm going to write it all down. I need to know. You don't need to write it down. Be yourself.
Yeah.
That's all you got to be, is be yourself. And if you're yourself like you are today, you should be laughing. You should have no problems.
Yeah.
You've got to acknowledge, look at you today, you've been rattling off all the different, the wording, my phrases, etc. You haven't got them written down, I know that.
It's written on the back of my hand.
So now I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Okay, as I do with all my interviewees. So is there anything you can give back to the industry today as a takeaway for them after listening to this?
For me, my personal approach on this, I'm going to say there isn't enough women in this industry doing this role. If there is any women out there considering doing it, go for it. Like, honestly, it's manageable. Working single mum, just go for it. Grab it with both hands. There's enough resources out there. There's enough training. It works around the family life. If you're considering it, do it. Make that change.
Yeah.
For you, for your role, your position, and for your children's future as well.
Perfect. Do you know, as well, there's not enough energy experts out there. We have got a significant, massive task to go and deliver energy management. And I believe that energy management is part of the journey to get to net zero. You know, if we don't do this first, then we're going to be creating more work for us at the end, you know.
Yeah.
And as I say, there's not enough of us energy experts. And I think it's very refreshing now to have a male and female working together on projects. You know, we've worked on quite a few projects together, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, as me as an expert, and we've both been scratching our heads and then give it to Chris. Do you remember that time?
Yeah.
We won't go into the detail. We're struggling because we couldn't get our figures to work. And then he just looked at it. And, and it always works, doesn't it, when you look at it? But, you know, you can all work, collaborate together on these sort of things. Doesn't matter the you know, male or female side of it. That's gone nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, we can all work together. We've all got the strengths and values to bring to these particular projects, I believe, going forward. Excellent. So, Lucy, coming up to 30 minutes. Done really well. Thank you very much for coming into London today and joining us.
It's been lovely.
It's been great hearing your story. I'm very excited about your story because I think it's quite unique. It's unique, but at the same time, it can be quite common, if you know what I mean. If we was to take this to the next level, you are doing very well. From that first person I met, he was nervous on Zoom, and look at you now. You're out there talking about it. You're working, you know, doing these energy assessments. Brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
And you and your family stay safe in these times.
Thank you very much.